What's up, everybody? Welcome into Kane's Insight. I am Peter Ariz, and this is spring practice number one, instant reaction. I'm here, obviously, in my car outside of Green Tree. Apologize. I said it was going to be originally at 10:15. They actually gave us like 45 minutes of practice to watch today for the media viewing. Normally it's 15, 20 minutes. So I didn't expect to get that much time in there. So this is for the better. I got to see a little bit more. Again, guys, if you're new here, then I'll break it down for you in just a second in terms of the observations and what we see, what we're able to watch. Right, we aren't watching the full practice in there. At least I wasn't, and a lot of the other media members weren't. But I'm gonna try to give you a look at guys who maybe body types have changed. Obviously, that's a big thing here in the off season. Getting to see, who's been putting in that work and taking care of their body and putting the right weight on and shedding the weight that you don't need. So all of that stuff we'll get into. But this is fresh. This is practice is still going on now. It's going to be finishing up here in a bit, but I just got out of there in the last 10, 15 minutes. So wrote down a bunch of notes here. A lot of it may be all over the place. I'll try to get the questions when I can here, but my initial observations, and again, a lot of this is with no defense. I'll get to some one-on-ones at the end, but this is skeleton stuff, positional work, no defense, a lot of it. But here are some of the things that on first viewing have stood out to me as spring practice. So first of all, wide receivers group right when we walked in was the first group that's right in front of us there. I tweeted out a video. You can find it on the Canes Inside page of some of the freshmen, Malachi Toney, Josh Moore, Dalen Upshaw. They were going back to back to back in some of the drills. Malachi Toney, to me, and I'll get to him more at the end in the one-on-ones, but Malachi Toney, to me, just the way that he moves so efficiently, he looks like a guy who has a day one impact at Miami. I think he's going to work himself onto the field very early. Had a nice one-on-one rep. Just a bit of a spoiler. I said I'm going to talk about one-on-ones at the end, but had a really nice rep against Markeith Williams. Markeith was giving him a lot of space. It was like a 5-yard out, and it was very easy. I don't know if Williams was worried about the speed and he thought he was gonna go deep or what, but I mean, he just did what he had to do in terms of taking what the defender was giving him. Now, Josh Moore, we've heard his name a lot here or in the first few weeks of him being on campus. D Money has talked about him in terms of his body type and doing a lot of really good things in the workouts and the 7-on-7 stuff. Body type wise, you see it. I tweeted out a couple of videos of him and you see his size. It definitely sticks out without a doubt. Nye Carr is a guy that to me looked like he put a lot of good weight on. And when I say a lot is probably a bit hyperbolic, but he added the weight that I think he needed that maybe kept him off the field last year. We heard a lot about what he was doing last year in practice, and I think that was true without a doubt. But game strength, play strength is very important. And I think he's put in the work in the offseason now to take that next step. Just again, looking at him, he looked way more stout. Not sure what his weight is on the scales, but it definitely looked like he had taken the next step in that regard. Elijah Lofton, a lot of talk about him. Where is he going to be used? Tight end, running back, wide receiver. He's an all-around weapon for Miami. He was more with the tight ends, with the receivers today. Early on in practice, had a one-handed snag, had to kind of like reach down for it. No defenders, but just looks so smooth as a receiver. And then we know when those pads come on, he's as physical as anybody, with or without the ball in his hands. So Elijah Lofton, we talked about him a lot last year. D Money was big on him, and I think we saw his role throughout the year. He was used in a multitude of ways, but you didn't need to have him as a focal point last season. I think this year he's someone that you really, really scheme a lot of things around offensively and is going to be one of Miami's better players this year. Tight end that stood out from a physical standpoint to me, Luka Gilbert. We've talked about him, said he was a guy who was probably closer to 250, 255 than the 240, 245 that he was at in high school. And I actually noticed him. it's funny when you're at these practices, you're, at least for the media side, you're only allowed to stand in certain areas. So they had the linemen on the other side of the field for the first part of the practice, and they were doing a lot of the blocking stuff on that side. And I first saw him, Luka Gilbert, that is, when he was getting vertical on a route, made a reception, just, again, stuff with no defense, just route running stuff early in practice. But when he was getting vertical, the way he's moving once he gets upfield is impressive, right? To pair that with his size. And then a couple minutes later, I was writing that note down, and I hear a thud on the other side of the field, and I look up, and these guys were on the sled, and who was it? It was, once again, Luka Gilbert. So the size that he's bringing to the table, I think you're looking for another blocking tight end to be someone who emerges this year. Cam McCormick was a very reliable player for Miami the last couple seasons. Was obviously a solid red zone target as well, converted on some touchdowns this year for Miami. And you bring in Bauman from Tulane. He's really more of a receiving type. I think Luka Gilbert could emerge as a really nice physical body in that tight end room early on, and someone that I'm excited about without a doubt. So keep going down my list of notes here, right? And I talked about the defensive line, was able to get a bit of a glimpse of the D-line on the other side of the field, and right away, what stood out to me, Justin Scott. I said, who the heck is number 5? And he was a guy coming in as a freshman last year, basketball player out of Chicago. I think really needed this spring to put that weight on. End of this, during the season, it's very tough to maintain weight, very tough to add weight. And it just looks like he's someone, from the weight standpoint, is right where he needs to be. I don't know, as we saw flashes of him throughout the year, but to hold up consistently year long, I don't think he was where he needed to be last year as a freshman. As we talk about with these talented young guys a lot, they're explosive. You can maybe see the flashes, snap a couple plays here or there during a game, but they get worn down over the course of a game and a season. Scott looks like someone who's taken the step that you wanted to see him take. So that was very encouraging. Cole McConaughey, I mentioned the other day, as someone who I saw walk around campus, looks way bigger. He's taken, a big step. Ghost of Von Donaldson says, nice Mazda. Not a Mazda, man. Not a Mazda. We got a Jeep Grand Cherokee. So if you ever see me riding around, then you know it's me. But a couple more notes on defensive linemen. So I talked to someone who was not media related, someone who's actually worked at Miami, in the past. Saw him at practice, and he was actually watching another part of practice the media did not have access to, that he was watching. And the first thing he told me was the body types of the freshman defensive linemen look really, really good. And we've mentioned the comparison between Dante Simpson and John Ford before. This is someone who, again, knows John Ford, was at Miami when John Ford was playing here, but he did not know this was a comparison the staff used. He said Dante Simpson looks just like John Ford when he came in. He said Ford was maybe a little bit more, chiseled up, but Simpson, height, weight, speed standpoint, has a lot of very intriguing tools. Hayden Lowe, the first guy that sticks out there, obviously at the defensive line spot, looks like an NFL, like legitimately, I'm not exaggerating here, looks like an NFL player right now. If he was standing next to guys who were getting ready for the NFL Combine right now, he would fit right in with them. So there's not going to be, I don't think from the coach's standpoint, for his standpoint, not an excuse in terms of the physical standpoint of the game. If he can go out there and take coaching the right way, no reason to think he wouldn't, and do everything he's supposed to do this year, I expect him to make a significant impact on the team this year. And when I say do everything he's supposed to do, I mean here and now in spring. Workout wise, I heard he was phenomenal. Now in this practice portion, just do the simple things, and he's going to be able to get on the field without a doubt. So let's see what else we got here. Linebacker wise, few people sticking out. Popo Aguirre, I think, really is someone who I've heard very good things about this spring in terms of his approach, and he's someone who I think coming to Miami, there's been excitement about him, but obviously was stuck kind of behind a veteran. We saw him emerge middle part of the year, late in the year, had a bit of an injury, but body looks good in terms of lean, strong, twitched up. I expect him to have a big spring here, take a big leap into a leadership role here. Chase Smith, someone who that thud sounds different in practice, and I've mentioned this with guys like Adarius Hayes before, but Chase Smith, I think we talk about him every year in, year out, as we think he's ready to take that step. Last couple of years, I don't think was fully healthy coming off of the injury. We saw him in flashes as a blitzer last year in special teams, and there's excitement about him. He sticks around as a veteran, and I think Corey Heatherman is going to be able to use him a lot of different ways in this defense. Big and fast with length. That's a very nice recipe to have a good role in a Corey Heatherman defense. So keeping it moving here. I mentioned I was talking to someone who had worked at Miami previously who was at practice today. The other guy that he mentioned from the DBs, he said looked really good, was Zachariah Poyser. Once they came inside and I saw him look strong up top, lean, lean midsection, looks twitched up, and the production was there as a freshman at Jacksonville State. So excited about his development here at Miami. You match his physical ability again with that production he had, and obviously he's taking a step up, but I don't think there's a question based on what he's done during workouts and the early returns on him that he's going to be someone that doesn't really have an issue with the the step up in competition. Is he going to be an all-conference performer right away? I'm not going to sit here and say that just yet, but I think you're upgrading at that spot for Miami without a shadow of a doubt this year in terms of the athletic ability and the twitch you're bringing that position, the physicality, the range, and the amount of ground he's going to be able to cover. So very, very excited about him. And guys, I'm sorry, I haven't really been looking at the comments, so I'll try to get to them in a second. I'm just trying to get through my notes here. A few notable number changes. Jordan Lyle wearing number 2, obviously was number 21. Damari Brown wearing number 2 as well. Xavier Lucas wearing number 6. So Damari Brown was number 6 the last couple of years. Number 2 now for him. And then there was a number of other new numbers. I said Justin Scott was one wearing number 5. David Blay was wearing number 11. He's another one, a D tackle. From the other side of the field, had some nice size to him. Definitely bigger than a Simeon Barrow. Obviously, Barrow had a great season for Miami, but I think that size is what you're lacking between the added weight from what I saw with Justin Scott and now what I'm talking about with Blay. You have really good size. The first 4 defensively look good there. I think building that depth behind you need an Artavius Jones to step up. We see what he's doing in the weight room, but it's got to translate now to the field, right? So excited about that young group. They've obviously shown that they're going to let some of those guys develop. They didn't bring in a whole lot of transfers there. So it's a big spring for them. Damian Lewis now here. JT, it's his room fully now in terms of the ends. They were before, but he's got the defensive line coach title now as a whole. So a lot of young guys there need to take that next step. Looking at some one-on-ones. And by the way, guys, appreciate everyone who's on here. We got almost 1,000 live with us. Again, instant reaction from spring practice number 1. It's wrapping up now, but the media, we actually got like 45 minutes in there today. So it's day 1, but I'm just giving you body types and things that stood out. Obviously, look, the quarterbacks, yeah, they're throwing, but I'm not going to be able to. There's only so much you can see from the QBs now at this point. There is some one-on-one stuff I'll get to. Carson Beck was out there, obviously not throwing. just yet, but he was there. So one-on-one wise, just some notable reps that stood out. Emmanuel Carnley. Carr had a nice catch on a slant from the left side of the field. Nickel, so Luke Nickel's brother at tight end as well. He was matched up with Cam Pruitt, and Pruitt had a nice breakup on the sideline. I don't know who was throwing the ball. It would have been a tough play to make for Nickel, but Pruitt had a nice breakup at the high point. JoJo Trader and Charles Brantley. Trader had a nice route to the inside and made a nice reception on Brantley. Malachi Tony, I mentioned this rep. This was one of my favorites. Malachi Tony, 5-yard out. It was an easy reception on Markeith Williams. Gave him a ton of separation off the line of scrimmage. So that you saw Restrepo eat on routes like that, right? On third downs, moving the chains, red zone. And different player. Tony's he's not 205, 210 pounds as we saw Restrepo weigh in at over the weekend. But the toughness is there and the quicks are there. And he's someone who's going to get open a lot, and he's going to catch the football. So let's see what else. The other one-on-one route that I wrote down, or the one-on-one rep that I wrote down, was Dalen Upshaw. Deep ball touchdown from Judd Anderson over the top on a walk-on defensive back, but that was one that got everyone excited. Again, nice throw over the top from Luke Nickel, Judd Anderson, and Dalen Upshaw. He had that good moment there, and he's someone who looks pretty big, man. Nice size on him. So these freshman receivers, we're looking for, obviously, someone from that group to step up, because they bring in CJ Daniels, but you're losing so much production there, and it's not going to surprise me to see a couple of these freshmen emerge and become rotational pieces for this wide receiver room. So let me see if there's any questions here that I can get to, and I've seen some questions on guys that, it's hard to see. I mean, look, Arab asking how Mark Fletcher's looking. I mean, he looked like Mark Fletcher. They weren't hitting and going against each other now. There's a lot of positional work in what we just saw here. So Mark Fletcher's Mark Fletcher. I have no doubts about what he is, right? He's a guy who has been a really consistent runner at Miami his first 2 years. So Cade Scott C305 saying that picture they posted of Hayden Lowe is ridiculous. Yeah, man, without a doubt. And he rolls those sleeves up all the way, man. So he's showing those guns off, and he's only 17 as Cade Scott C305. So a lot of development to continue with him, man. So it's impressive. Brandon asking how Pruitt looked. He had that nice rep, and he's someone who I think is going to continue to come along. Really versatile skill set with his ability to cover up against tight ends. I think that he's a really nice matchup with those guys. As a blitzer, can be really intriguing, as could Chase Smith, as we've seen. So sorry, I'm looking down here because I'm looking at the comments on my computer. Let me keep going here. I've seen a couple questions about Ruben Bain. I mean, he was on the other side of the field. I didn't really see anything with him in particular that was too different. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I mean, look, guys, this is day one. So obviously my first day out there, and everyone else's. I want to look at the young guys, or I'm really mentioning guys that me personally I notice have taken big leaps from the body wise standpoint. That doesn't mean if I'm not mentioning them, they didn't look good or whatever the case may be. But again, when I'm in there now, we got 45 minutes in there, which is more than normal. We usually get for this period 15-20 minutes, and we can pretty much walk up and down one sideline. So there's some stuff that's just going to be hard to see. I haven't mentioned anything about the offensive linemen because they were kind of covered up on the other side, and it was very difficult to see them. They rotate sometimes, but yeah, pretty much what I've given you today is oh, you know what I didn't mention is Kellen Wiley with the linebackers, someone who obviously he's up there with the Adarius Hayeses, Cam Pruitt's, Chase Smiths in terms of like looking different with that length, with their ability, their movement ability, and Wiley is someone we've heard a lot about during workouts, up close to 240 pounds, and his ability to move, drop back in coverage, but at the same time to thud and get downhill and play in space makes him a very, very unique player who should have a role on this team. And I think it comes in bigger than what Bobby Pruitt was at last year, which I think that's what still is going to be what takes Pruitt to the next level, is adding that good weight and takes him from being a matchup guy, a guy that you use situationally, I should say, to being an every down player. And I think he's taking that step, but I think Wiley comes in with some real weight on him, and someone who I expect to be a contributor pretty early on here. Let's see what else Francis asking about Pringle. Yeah, if you got any reps for the running backs, look, everyone's getting reps now. It's spring practice. So in the positional stuff, I tweeted out a video of him coming out of the backfield, making a little reception. He's short. He's not a very tall back, but you can tell he's just got that juice to him, got that explosiveness, got that burst. So he's someone who I think could bring that change of pace. Jordan Lau, I think, can do it all, has long speed, can run between the tackles, great contact balance that we've talked about. Mark Fletcher, we know what he is. He's 5-6 yards downhill every single time he gets it, and with those long strides just eats up chunks and chunks of yards along the way. And I think Pringle can give you that little jitterbug, different look if you're a defense that you have to worry about. And he's small, but he's tough to bring down. He will bounce off of arm tackles. So excited about him, and he's going to have a lot of opportunities here moving forward, potentially to be the third back in this offense. Lofton, I expect to get some touches at that spot as well. Wheatley Humphrey, who redshirted last year, could be in the mix too. But Pringle, I think, is in a good spot to solidify himself as back number 3 here. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. D Money and I will probably do something later as well. Thank you once again to Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys, as always, for sponsoring our show. Dial 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing this all spring long. My instant reaction thoughts. Obviously, again, only so much we can see here, but trying to bring you everything I can here and give you guys the latest. And I'm sure D will do the same later as well. So appreciate you all for joining me today. Hit that like, subscribe, and go Canes.